The Hochberg Farm Estate is owned by the federal state of Baden-Württemberg. We've been tenants here since 2015. The lease is tied to conditions within the framework of the Competence Centre for Organic Agriculture of Baden-Württemberg to make the farm available for research and education. Specifically, this means that the State Research Institute carries out experiments on our land here, carries out research and implements ideas or questions of the farm, but also general issues about organic farming. In the field of education, we make the farm available for teachers and students. I always say it's a 100-hectare classroom, and I myself also work as a teacher in this context. The farm's a mixed farm, with the typical structure of the southwest of Germany. That means we're very diverse. In addition to arable farming and grassland, we have a dairy herd and laying hens in mobile stalls, and in the summer, more than 260 fattening geese that graze this orchard meadow on which we're currently standing.
The
strength of dual vocational education to become a farmer is that the vocational school, in our case the Edith Stein Vocational School, is a good place to lay the theoretical foundations, especially in the field of crop production and animal husbandry. And the apprentices then learn to put these theoretical basics into practice at their training farms. On the farms, the practical content is then further focused by the head of the training farm. And because every farm sets priorities differently and implements things differently, the apprentices learn farm-specific subtleties very well there and can then exchange ideas with their classmates at apprentice meetings or at vocational school about what's good at one farm and what may not be good either. This way they'll have very good skills to run a business themselves as farm managers after completing their training. This wouldn't be possible with a purely theoretical training at university.
Die Ausbildung im ersten Lehrjahr findet folgendermaßen statt. Die Lehrlinge.
Education in the first year of apprenticeship is as follows. The apprentices are 4 days a week at vocational school and 1 day on the farm, where they undergo their practical training. There are 5 types of practice farms, which means that the apprentices already get an insight into 5 different farm types as early as in the first year of their apprenticeship. The individual apprentice is always challenged during their practice days. This means that they cannot avoid any task, but rather participate in everything, and conversely, it's important to me as a trainer that the apprentice is taught the basic knowledge in these areas. This has the advantage when the second and third years of apprenticeship take place at the training farm, that certain basic knowledge is already available. In the second and third year of their apprenticeship, they're no longer offered such an insight into so many different farms. The Edith Stein Vocational School in Freiburg has a large catchment area. This means there are apprentices coming from different parental farms, but also many with other backgrounds. Some may have already completed another educational path, and some may have studied and then decided to become a farmer.
Oder manche ein Studium und haben sich dann entschieden für diesen Beruf.
Grundsätzlich ist es so, dass die Azubis im zweiten und dritten
Basically, the apprentices in their second and third years of apprenticeship spend 1 block week a month at vocational school and 3 weeks at their training farms. Every apprentice has to complete 4 main production subjects during the training. This means training on a purely arable farm is not possible. It must include at least 2 main subjects in the field of animal husbandry. For example, dairy cattle and young cattle, or pig fattening and piglet production. Larger farms have dairy cattle and young cattle, grain and grassland. Otherwise, the apprentices need 2 different training farms. With the help of the training plan, it's ensured that the apprentices can complete the most important training content at the training farms, so that it's guaranteed that the apprentice has really learned these elementary contents of vocational education at the training farm.
Ausbildung dann auch auf dem Ausbildungsbetrieb gelernt hat.
Jedes Jahr haben wir hier 3.
We have 3 apprentices here every year. They're fully integrated into the farm and work with us like a full-time employee. They're really challenged and also needed here. And it's extremely important for the apprentices to have this feeling that they are needed. In addition, they're 10 times per year for a week at vocational school and acquire theoretical knowledge there. What I find important in the apprenticeship education is not only to teach them the skills of the trade, such as how do I handle the pitchfork, how do I milk a cow, or how do I operate a modern agricultural machine, but also the larger contexts in agriculture and furthermore the impact that their actions in agriculture have on the world. That they understand that too.
Dass sie das auch verstehen.
Für die Bewerbung muss man nach Höfen gucken, wo man will.
To apply, you have to look for a farm where you want to go, for the region, for the topic. For me, it was important that it's an organically managed farm with little use of pesticides and very close to nature. Therefore, I studied the homepage of the regional council to see which training farms were available and then came to work on trial and passed a job interview. And that's how it came about. You have different work areas with the dairy cattle. The cows, the milking in the morning and in the evening, and their keeping, that they go to the pasture, what feed they need, taking care for their health, that they have a good milk yield. But also arable farming, that different crops are grown, how they're cared for over the year up to the harvest, how the soil is prepared so that in the end one has an optimal yield. It's very interesting and I've had a lot of fun with it so far. And I'm happy that it continues, because you learn something new and do something different every day. Difficult issues for the future are, of course, the constantly changing weather conditions, that it's actually getting warmer here, increasingly hotter, and that it is in fact becoming more and more difficult to grow feed to the extent that you need for your animals. And then there's also a rethinking in society, that it's becoming more and more important that the animals are doing well, that people tend to consume less meat and eat healthily, and customers are interested in where their meat actually comes from. During our apprenticeship, we live here on the farm and are given a room. In the morning we have breakfast together. At noon we have lunch together.
Mittags gibt es ein gemeinsames Mittagessen.
Der wichtigste Unterschied von der ökologischen zur konventionellen
The
Landwirtschaft
most important difference between organic and conventional agriculture actually is that organic agriculture has always had the idea of sustainability, which of course can now also be found in conventional agriculture. Conventional agriculture was originally rather geared towards productivity. Organic farming tries to produce as much as possible of what's needed to produce food from within itself. It thinks in terms of nutrient cycles and generally pursues a cyclical approach. Ideally, the farm also deals with animal husbandry, so that it can produce its own fertilizer in sufficient quantities for its areas and is not dependent on introducing external fertilizer into the farm. A crop rotation takes place in the fields. Even if it's not always the most productive way at first glance, in the long term, it's the most sustainable type of land management that I cultivate crops that build up soil fertility, for instance clover or alfalfa, and then crops such as grain, which tend to deplete the humus and soil fertility again. And then I continue with other legumes, for instance grain legumes such as peas and field beans, to make a contribution to enhance soil fertility again. And this repeats itself about every 5 to 7 years. And this crop rotation never creates such a high disease pressure in terms of fungal diseases or insects or weed pressure, so that I'm not dependent on all these pesticides. It's not about not being allowed to use them, but rather that I don't even need to use them in this sustainable type of management. A big topic in organic farming is animal welfare, that the animals can go to pasture, can go outside, or at least have a place to roam. Most of the feed must come from your own farm. Soy imports from Brazil are excluded in organic farming. In addition, the organic farmer still has to provide biodiversity areas, either orchards or wetlands or hedges, in order to provide a habitat for insects, birds and animals. You can roughly say that you have half the yields compared to conventional farming, but you also have to see that the products are remunerated accordingly with a higher price, roughly twice the price. And in Germany, organic farming is additionally subsidized by the state, because with its ecological services, it makes an important contribution to society, which is then honored by society through taxpayers' money.
Beitrag leistet, der eben dann von der Gesellschaft auch über Steuergelder honoriert wird.
Ich bin gerade im 3. Lehrjahr und habe mein zweites auch schon hier auf dem Betrieb gemacht.
I'm currently in the 3rd year of my apprenticeship, the 2nd I have already done here on this farm. I wanted to do this apprenticeship so that I could be outside in the fresh air every day, and to see over the year what you do and what you change, and above all to work with the animals. In my 2 years of apprenticeship, I actually did everything from the daily work with the animals, stable, calf rearing, cattle rearing, pasture care, but also milking, and everything that comes up with machine work I was able to do at least once. I think the most difficult thing is how to make the whole farm concept economical, with a lot of things following the cycle idea. Much has changed due to the climate, due to the extreme drought in recent years, as a result of which we've made adjustments in sowing, such as rolling the soil of our clover grass. At some point I'd like to have my own farm, with cattle or goats or ruminants, with some geese, because they're very beautiful animals, but also with crop production and maybe a little bit of vegetables, so that you have something of everything that you can directly sell to the people in your surroundings, because you can determine the prices yourself and you're independent. We get a fixed apprentice salary that's set by the authorities. I've already completed my final written exam. You just write a thesis in certain subjects at school. And for completing the apprenticeship, I continue working here on the farm and do my tasks and prepare for the final practical exam. To do it, you have to go to another training farm and perform specified tasks and explain why you're doing them. Already before the end of my apprenticeship, I registered for the advanced vocational education to graduate as a bachelor professional in agriculture, a so-called Meister in Germany.
Vor Ausbildungsende für den Meister angemeldet.
Die Berufsausbildung zum Landwirt endet im 3.
Vocational education as a farmer ends in the 3rd year of apprenticeship. First, with the final written examination in the subjects of economics, social studies, and then with the examination subjects of animal husbandry and crop production. The exams take 1.5 hours each. The last day of the vocational education for an apprentice is always reserved for the final practical exam. This takes place at selected training farms in the region.
In der Umgebung Stadt.
Der Ablauf der praktischen Prüfung ist aufgeteilt in
The practical examination is divided into two subjects. On the one hand, crop production, which can be an arable farming topic, but it can also be a grassland topic. On the other hand, animal production with a topic from the pig farming sector or a topic from dairy cattle, calf rearing or young cattle rearing. The time available is always 2 hours and 15 minutes. We as examiners then have to assess the ability and capability of the apprentices, so that later, when they take over a farm as managers or work as skilled farmers, they'll be able to cope with the work that's waiting for them.
die auf ihn warten, dass sie bewältigt.
Thema im Vergleich zur Berufsausbildung sind bei uns an der Fachschule vor allem
Compared to vocational education, the topics at our advanced vocational school are primarily economics, business management, but also animal husbandry and crop production. Our students have already completed a vocational education. For example, they're certified farmers. The students have gained experience on their own farms or on other farms. Usually after 1 year, they register with us at the Advanced Vocational Education School. The advanced class for organic farming is structured in a special way. In the first year, there are 6 block weeks here at the college. The rest of the time, the students spend either on their own farms or on other farms, where they deepen their practical skills. In the second year, the students start here in November, and we train them for another year. At the end, the students are agricultural economists, specialised in organic farming. Our advanced vocational education is recognised as Bachelor Professional in Business and closely interlinked with the training qualification of a Meister that enables the students and prospective entrepreneurs to train apprentices themselves. This means that they're later active in vocational education and have apprentices on their farms.
Azubis und Auszubildende auf dem Betrieb.
Ich habe keinen eigenen Betrieb daheim, habe die Ausbildung als Landwirt gemacht und bin
I don't have my own farm business at home. I've done the apprenticeship as a farmer and then worked for 1 year as a skilled farmer. I'm now at the Advanced Vocational School in Emmendingen to simply get a better overview of business management. We're trained in staff management and in apprenticeship training, and I'm then allowed to train apprentices. That's a really cool thing. Of course, I could still do further studies afterwards, agricultural sciences or the like, but that's actually of no interest to me, because I'm a practical man and I want to accomplish something and not spend all of my life at school. In any case, I don't want my own farm where I work alone, but prefer to work within a team. My brothers also do agriculture, hence preferably with them, and in a way that everyone has a different speciality. Thus, you can also have at times a weekend or go on vacation and split up the work.
Ferien machen kann und sich eben die Arbeit teilen.